Hello and welcome to Micro Business News Network. I'm Kim Richardson, your National Anchor Chair. The Micro Business News Network is a forum for disseminating of information to grow your business. We're your local tool to get your voice heard at an affordable price using cutting-edge technology. The word on the street is you can't afford not to showcase your business on Micro Business News Network. You know what? Time is money, so I'm not going to waste any more. We're going to get right down to business. Seated over here to my left is the beautiful Dana Nicole Jones, the author of Jezebel, the autobiography of a love addict. Now, Dana, that's pretty cutting edge. Can you give us a brief synopsis of your book?
Yes, I can. My book, Jezebel, the autobiography of a love addict, is a story that's based in 1940s, 2 generations before my character is actually born. And it takes you through her life as a love addict, as she goes through marriage, promiscuity, divorce, to being a single parent, everything that a person would go through as they journey through this thing we call love. And it can go into some very deep and dark places, as well as some funny places as well. I think this book is provocative, it's edgy, it's funny. At the same time, you learn a lot in this book.
I see that. Provocative, edgy, funny. I like that because that was going to be my next question, Dana. If I had to describe this book, what would be some words that I would use to describe it? Provocative, edgy, funny. But I've also heard that it's humorous. In what way can you say that it's humorous? The autobiography of a love addict?
Because love can be funny. It actually can be. It'll take you some places sometimes that you don't want to go and leave you leave you longer than you want to stay. But love can be funny, even though it can hurt you at different times. There are things that are happening in relationships. And I just made sure that even though I was telling a story about a love addict, that I used some creativity in bringing the story forth. So there are times when I will make you laugh because every good book has some form of, well, we would like to believe that every good book should have something that's interesting. So adding components like humor and provocativeness, edginess, as well as being informative is something that I really wanted to present in this book.
You know what, Dana? Someone else told me, and as I was reading through the book, I noticed that it had a healing component. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Absolutely. I consider myself a former love addict as well. Okay. And so as a result of me wanting to share my story or some form of it, of course you can't tell everything in your own life, but being a writer since 7, I was able to just bring forth a book that would also help me heal and have a rebirth in my own journey. About 3 years ago, I quit my job to heal myself, to really discover my spirituality in a new way. And so I think that when I began to write this book, I wanted to make sure that I could help people just by telling a story, because love is destructive. I always say that love to a love addict is like crack to a crack addict. It can be just as destructive. So even in those times, we all have to heal. When you hit rock bottom, you definitely want to go back up.
Right. Now, I'm a language arts teacher, and I say to the children when I'm teaching them the aspect of writing, the autobiography of a love addict. Love addict. What does that look like?
A love addict qualifies their life by the quality of love given and received. Okay. So, you know, if love is not right in their life, then they think their life isn't right in some form or another. Sometimes it'll sink them, and at the same time it'll sell them. But we have to put love in perspective so that doesn't happen anymore. And I tried to portray that in the book so that people could learn. This book is very informative, as well as it being humorous and edgy and provocative.
Okay, now when I look at the title as well, I'm seeing love addict. Are we talking about promiscuity here?
Well, sex to a sex addict is different from love. You know, it has the same components, but it's different from love to a love addict. I mean, it can be, promiscuity can be part of the journey, but it's not what it's composed of. Love is how you feel when you're holding on to something that sometimes doesn't even belong to you, and you don't even know how to, wrap those feelings around your head to a certain extent. But I think it's definitely a difference.
It's different. Okay, so we're not talking about sex here per se.
Well, there is a lot of sex in the book because promiscuity does occur. And her journey, because sometimes we don't even like ourselves, and sometimes we do things that may go against our own integrity and character at different times. So I'm telling everybody's story. This is not necessarily my story, but some people go through times when they're self-destructive, and I think promiscuity can be a part of that.
I see. Now, that leads me to the question of the day. And we're going to have many questions, but I absolutely have to ask this question because I'm sure that inquiring minds wants to know. Dana Nicole Jones, are you Jezebel?
I am not necessarily Jezebel. Jezebel is every woman I have known, every woman I have been. It's a combination of different people. It's artistically written so that it can encompass everyone. I mean, I do believe that we all have a little Jezebel in us. You know, we read books and we don't necessarily want to talk about that part of our life, but I wanted to write a book so I could just tell it all, let it all hang out and sort of make everyone think about themselves in that component.
Okay, so you're not necessarily... Yeah.
No, I am embellished. It is parts of my story. I will admit that one part of the book that happened is that she married the fugitive that she didn't know about. That's a real component of the book. Did I take different parts of my life and make it more grandiose? Yes. Did I, listen to someone who was telling me a story at the time and possibly put it inside the book? Yes. I think that's what makes Jezebel so unique is that I'm able to take my gift as writing, take my education, and sort of make a book that just tells a story that you'll never really know from what angle it came, but at the same time you can relate.
Tell me a little bit more about that fugitive. Girl, you know I'm nosy. Tell me a little bit more about that fugitive component. And I'm glad if you compare and contrast with the book, but tell me a little bit more about that.
Well, in my own life, about 10 years ago, I woke up and I was in a marriage, and I found out that my ex-husband at the time was involved in that, a fugitive on the run, I guess I'll just say that. I don't really want to embarrass him. At the same time, it was something that was life-altering for me because that was part of my journey. So we're not embarrassed about it, but at the same time, it was something that happened that transformed my life. And I don't know, and I think I carried that over. Because what happens when you're loving one person, sometimes if you can't love them right, you sometimes transfer that love over to someone else. And if you haven't healed in the process, it can be detrimental.
Absolutely. Now, tell us about Jezebel and her fugitive situation.
Well, in the book, I won't tell the whole story.
I know, because we want to go out and buy it, okay?
I won't tell the whole story. But Jezebel woke up one day and found out that, her husband was a fugitive on the run, and she had to make some changes and get her life together. She had 2 small children at this time, and she had to just really strap up her boots, get her life together. And what she discovered was that she had a lot of healing to do that she transformed onto other relationships. And as a result, it took that time, along with several years later, for her to heal. And in that time, that's part of the journey of the book when you read it. It's definitely some very deep things that happened, from her standing before the court and having to deal with being in a strange atmosphere so young with 2 children, when what she thought she would be doing was be married and sort of living a simple life.
You know what, that is a very powerful point. We know, according to research, that in the United States that there's 50% of the marriages that take place are going to end in divorce. That's massive when you're talking about those kinds of odds. But Jezebel, the autobiography of a love addict, actually has some problem-solving components that could probably do something to waylay that particular research.
Absolutely. In healing, we deal with issues of, we definitely deal with our spirituality. There's a lot of spirituality in this book. First of all, there's a lot of poetry in the book. So when she when she needs to express something, sometimes she moves into poetry. And the poetry in itself is very deep and interesting. At the same time, there's 36 love lessons in the back, because once she gets her life together, she wants to share with people what she's learned. Simple things, like never marry someone before they marry you, because you're giving yourself to someone who's not really willing to give themselves to you, and you need to learn how to have fun instead and focus on having fun, because good things happen when people are having fun. I always say that fall is an accident. It's not like something that you try to do. You know what I mean? You have an accident. That even occurs with falling in love. And I think that we can do that when we have fun and focus on that necessarily. So that's one of the rules, for instance.
I love that. You know what? That 36 love lessons, that was priceless, because when we were doing the pre-interview, I started jotting. I started jotting some things down that I would like to apply to my own life. Now, I want to go into the artistry of this book, because this is absolutely a piece of art in the fact that you have approached this book from 3 very powerful genres. We've got the narrative piece.
Yes.
We've got the poetry piece.
Absolutely.
And we've even got the instructional piece. Tell me why you approached this book this way.
I think that I'm a teacher and an artist. I'm also a mom. I'm a lover. I'm a daughter. I think that I wanted to just use all of the components to just make a really interesting book. I think that when you read something that is done well, it also makes you, it's a page turn when you can just read it and find certain things about it. But even when I was trying to get the book published, they wanted me to take out the poetry. And I didn't want to do that because I felt like if, to take out the poetry in her life would mean that I couldn't be all that I could be as an educated black woman, and then have to take the poetry out of my life. And I still write poetry. I still write short stories. I still love to dance and everything else, but I could write a novel. I could be educated, but also I can also have complex love relationships as well.
I think that was good information to me, because when we were talking about it, you could have just had a poetry book.
Oh, I'm far too layered for that.
Now talk a little bit about that, because I thought that was a very good point when we talked about that.
I'm far too layered for that. I'm educated. First of all, I have a bachelor's in social work. I have a master's in training and organization development. I'm a mom. I've had a job. I'm an entrepreneur now. I run my own business as well, and so I'm too layered to write just a book about poetry. And I kind of have a grandiose personality, very artsy is the word. And so I just didn't want to write a book that would make it so simple. I'm not that simple as a person. I'm very complex, but not complicated, and that's the difference.
And I think that with the poetry layering in there, I thought it made the narrative so much more richer, because the poetic pieces, with something dramatic would happen in her life, then she would react to it, by a poetry piece. Now, there's nothing more powerful than any author can do when you read their own. You knew that was coming, didn't you? Could you choose one and share it with us, please?
Oh my, yes, I will.
Well, I like that one.
You like that one?
I did.
Okay, in the book, this is when Jezebel was in her second relationship. She had just had her first child, and she had found out that something had happened with her relationship that involved drugs and everything else, and she had a hard time leaving this guy. And this particular poem is called "The Open Grave." It says, "Something in my heart won't let me do you doggone, even though you deserve it, and I'm still carrying the scars from your abuse. Now that you are weak, and while the world is against you, and for me and my liberation, I could use my power and the power of the people to crush you, curse you. But instead, I just kick rocks and don't look back. But really, you are in the worst shape than I would ever be. I had all the love, and I took it with me, leaving you half dead. It's got to be cold in the open grave you are lying in."
Wow. Give me a break.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Nikki Giovanni and her very didactic way of poetry. That's exactly what came to my mind when I read that.
Wow.
Read
That's a
that
compliment.
piece.
Thank you.
Well, hey.
She's a Gemini like me, so I really, really like that. Thank you. Thank you.
Because you can hear the voice, you can feel the emotion, you can feel what you're trying to do. Now, I just described the poetic pieces to Nikki Giovanni, but I think that the narrative has been described compared to other modern-day writers. Can you tell us who you've been described with?
They describe me as a cross between Zane and Sister Soldier, because it's provocative like Zane. There are some very steamy love scenes in the book, or just sexually provocative scenes in the book, but that was part of her journey. At the same time, there's a point in the book where sex was kind of used, or the abuse of sex.